Good morning, YouTube. Good afternoon, YouTube. It looks like it's past the lunch hour. It's your buddy Chop It On coming at you with another episode of Chop Talk brought to you by DFSArmy.com, your one-stop shop for everything daily fantasy sports related, from coaching to tools to content to everything you could possibly imagine. And honestly, it's the coaching that sets us apart from everybody else. What we're going to do today is obviously give you a little bit of sample of some of the tools and some of the coaching and whatnot that we do deliver inside DFS Army. Hopefully you become a VIP by following the link in the comments section of this video, and of course by using the code CHOP, C-H-O-P, for that 10% savings. We're getting NFL ready to rock and roll, but as we do that, we're still cranking the MLB turn crank, whatever you want to call it, that prints the money that we like to spend so much. My whole point is we had a huge week inside the Army. You need to come over here and check us out. We'll be adding to the Wall of Wins section with a $100,000 PGA winner, another 20 and another $10,000 MLB winner that came off of our coaching and our advice inside DFSArmy.com. Today we're going to look at chin music for Monday. We're going to scroll down it really quick. I want to show you a neat little trick. This video will get replaced, obviously. I'm going to show you a neat little trick that it comes to finding weak pitching on our research station. Now, when we get back to the basics, we're looking for big offenses and big ERAs, of course, and we're looking for them to match up. And what we really like to see is when the Twins are scoring a lot of runs but are also giving up a lot of runs, they're usually a great target for both offense and the team opposing them. So we're going to pay attention to that a little bit this week. When it comes to pitching, I dug into a lot of these guys' game logs, and Peralta, Ray, Paxton, not really all that safe. Cole has not brought value at this price in months. He's overpriced. You could use him for maybe some cash games to get you 40 points, but you need to get 50 plus out of him at that price, and it's not happening. And going up against Seattle is not exactly the best way to go about it. Paxton coming off the DL, Robbie Ray inconsistent, Freddie Peralta inconsistent. Nola, I don't really want to take on Boston, so I'm looking at Maeda, and Maeda is probably the pitcher I would be using in cash games or all of my formats. I might offset with a couple of these other guys, but generally speaking, Maeda is going to be the guy I go to. Carries a decent favorite, has an over 500 K score, 93 rating in the DFSA grades, and he faces Milwaukee, who tends to be a little bit strikeout prone. So that is not a bad situation, especially when he draws them at home in Chavez Ravine. That really wraps up the pitching really quickly today because there's just not a lot to think about. When we're looking for pitchers to exploit, I'll dive into the research station and I'll show you a little bit of this. But when we come down to bats to stack, how do we find these players and these offenses? And that's also what's going to come into play here. So let's jump in to the research station, show you the pitching matchups tab. What I generally do is I sort them by default by the DFSA grade. And what I'm going to also do is I'm going to consider the top rated pitchers and I'm going to stack against the bottom rated pitchers. I'm going to come all the way over here to the Vegas lines and I'm going to study up on who has the bigger favorites, maybe who has the highest run totals per game, and I'm going to look for those offenses in those run scoring games. And then I'm going to come down here and look at the offenses that I want to stack against these lower rated pitchers. That's basically the gist of what you need this tool for, but there is so much more that meets the eye that when you dig into this tool you find out. Things like K percentage. If I wanted to just look at K percentage, that's great. Add up the K percentage, the opposing K percentage, that's how you get my K score. But you know what? Sometimes tiebreakers need to be had, and you can use swinging strikes. Look at the guys that get the swinging strikes right now. 13%'s up there. 9% a pitch to contact kind of guy. These are the guys that can get the strikeouts when they need it, and when they're facing a team that doesn't exactly strike out a ton, sometimes they still win the battle with that swing and miss stuff that they possess. I look for guys that are pitching on low contact sometimes. These are all tiebreakers. The main thing is who's going to throw strikeouts and who's facing a bad offense. But when we come down to breaking ties, sometimes we'll dip into swinging strikes, hard contact, fly ball ground ball ratio, things like that. All featured inside this research station. But today, what I noticed was really interesting. I came over here and I started wondering, how else can I find the guy who's struggling against a left-handed batter or a right-handed batter? And like I tell you all the time, I want a guy who struggles against both. I want to target him with the opposing bats. And the reason why is because that's going to flip the lineup over and over again. If he always gets out righties but has trouble with lefties, then he's going to find a couple righties in the lineup and typically get out of an inning. But if he can't get anybody out, he's typically a gas can, and he's really going to give up a lot of runs, 4, 5, 6, 7, if the bats can get going against him. Hopefully he faces a hot team, and he really has trouble. Now, the way I find that is I look at versus lefties and versus righties numbers. I scroll over past the DFSA grade into the stats, then I go to the lefties and the righties, and I'm looking for WOBA versus left, WOBA versus right, and then a little bit of ISO maybe. And what I'm trying to find is who sucks against both. So when I'm looking at the ISO, what I'm going to do is take them versus righties or lefties. It doesn't really matter. Sort by descending order. And the next thing you know, all of the bad WOBAs come to the top. Derek Holland gives up a 380 WOBA on the season to right-handed bats. 380 also out of Martin Perez. 380 out of Edwin Jackson when you round up. 365 out of Marco Estrada. 365 out of Eric Lauer. Right-handers crush these guys across the season. Now, we're talking about a 380 WOBA. We know 400 is stellar. 380 is okay. It's not like these guys don't get out still. It just means he's a lot more vulnerable than Freddie Peralta is against righties. See where I'm coming with that? And what I'm trying to do is just stack the odds in my favor. So I'm going to come over here to the lefties category here, and I'm going to look for other red numbers. Ooh, Edwin Jackson. Edwin Jackson struggles against righties and a little bit against lefties. And Eric Lauer struggles more against lefties than he does righties, but he struggles against both. There's a prime target for you right there in Eric Lauer. When I scroll down a little more, 326, maybe we're looking at a Tyler Anderson. If I come down a little bit farther, I start to get to where now they're not struggling against lefties so bad. So what I'm seeing is that as these numbers get bad, it's still another guy with split issues. If you really wanted to, you could target the right-handed bats against these pitchers and the left-handed bats by sorting against descending order now on the left side, targeting against these bats. Does that make sense? That's another way to play it. You can look at the ISOs from side to side, and you're looking for big ISOs going up against each other. So now that we're sorted against the left side, I'm looking for any red ISOs, and here's a couple down here to Heron and Anderson again. These guys are giving up power to both sides of the ball, both sides of the plate. These are just little things that when you know how to use them, you can then start attacking specific offenses. And of course, what we do when we attack specific offenses is we go into the Trends tab. And of course, we've sorted by the grade, but we look at the L7 WOBA numbers. We go to the number filters, greater than, say, 350 today, just because we want to see what's available on a lot of these slates. And I'm going to target. If I wanted to, I could target even more. I'll show you that at the end because I didn't show you that the last time. When I go to Arizona, I'm looking at all of these guys as playable. Now I want to see some at-bats on the 14-day plate appearances. I want to see a guy who's likely to start this early in my research process because I want to make sure that the guy's probably going to get the start when the lineup is released tonight. And I see all these 350s, and I want to focus on the higher numbers. I like the 400s. So if I come down into here to these two guys, it looks like Souza and Escobar. And then there's a little bit here with Ahmed and Marte that look pretty good. Goldschmidt, not so much, but it doesn't mean he's a bad bat. It's obviously Paul Goldschmidt, am I right? So what I'm going to do is these are the guys I'm going to be using most of my stacks. I may use some Ahmed, Marte, Souza. I may use Goldschmidt, Souza, Escobar. Who knows how it's going to match out, where we're going to spin the wheel and where we're going to land, but I'm going to make a few lineups, and Arizona would be part of that, based on the fact that they are also facing Martin Perez, who we just noted was a gas can giving up power to both sides of the plate. When I jump into Atlanta, I'm looking at Camargo, Culberson, Inciarte, and Acuna, okay? Boston is interesting because nobody shows up. Nobody's really running that hot in Boston right now. Now, they're still scoring runs. They're still a great offense. They can snap out of it on any given night. But as of right now, I might let somebody face, Aaron Nola makes a good GPP pitcher because if nobody's running all that hot, maybe Aaron Nola mows them down. Problem is their K percentage isn't very high as a team, and so Nola's ceiling is also capped. But I would consider it. It might be something that I might take a chance on tonight. I'm just not going to expect a lot of it unless I get lucky. But I would get off these bats as expensive as they are. I'm not recommending a full Boston fade. I'm saying I would contemplate other hotter bats out there somewhere else. When I look at Cleveland, I've got hot bats here. These are pricey as well, but they're in a better matchup than maybe Boston is. Boston running a little cold facing a competent pitcher. We may run up against an Irvin Santana and rather take some Cleveland bats. Looking over here at the 4, 4, 5, 4, almost 800 on small sample. When you see these big numbers, they're generally small samples. So you might stick to the top 4 or 5 guys. Ramirez, Encarnacion, Lindor, Alonso, maybe some Cabrera. When I jump over into who's next? Oakland and Minnesota, maybe. Let's look at Oakland really quick. And I've got a few names that I can pick from. If I look at Minnesota, all of a sudden, poof, I've only got a couple of names to pick from. Where Minnesota's scoring all these runs from, I don't know. Why they're not showing up on the WOBA, I don't know. What I do know is they're still in a good spot tonight. I look at Toronto. Toronto was facing bad pitching on both sides of the plate in Edwin Jackson, which we noted. Grichuk, Smoke. Could Grichuk be any hotter? Dude's a cash play right now for a couple of weeks, but he's not normally a cash player, but when he's running this hot, he can produce on a nightly basis, and he's doing so. Gurriel has shown some power lately. These are names that we want to be utilizing. Now, the thing that I do want to show you, if I click off of this, and then we'll wrap it up today here in about 10 minutes. It's a Monday slate busted up for you in about 10 to 12 minutes with a couple of tips thrown in there. Again, when I'm going to my WOBA numbers and I get a bigger slate and I want to find something really, really stellar, I'm going to go to 400, right? And now I'm going to look for value plays. If I want to run an Ian Cole, I'm going to need it at that 11-1. And I'm going to go through the number filters and go less than $3,000. I'm going to look for two things here. Now, I've got everybody running hot. Okay, if I want to make sure that they're going to start, I might cut this out and go greater than, say, 35 plate appearances over the last 14 days. Uh-oh, they all disappeared. Looks like a ton of platoon players. We might have to bring that down a little bit. Wow, how about that? If I clear it and they all come back, a lot of them are platoon players. That was interesting. I didn't expect that to disappear like it did. So maybe we'll leave it in place, but we'll watch for these red numbers over here because they're not likely to get the start. But if you're looking at the DFS salaries and the value plays, the deep value under $3,000, $2,800, $2,600, $2,300 for Lucroy. Look at Lucroy. $2,300. He's facing Marco Estrada, who's a potential blow-up candidate tonight, and he's running a 402 WOBA. I'd rather take that over somebody for $5,000 that's running a 402 WOBA because it's cheaper. This is how you find a lot of your cheap bats, and you need this tool to be able to do this. This is why you need to become a VIP inside the Army. The second thing I will tell you is on here I will also start looking for discrepancies in price. Let's look for some small Fanduel prices and some big DraftKings prices. Souza, Descalzo, if Descalzo gets the start. These guys are all pretty punt priced. Gaddis maybe. Nick Williams maybe. Inciarte for sure. Inciarte is running a 410 WOBA in a decent matchup against Chen, and he's 2,800. And he might grab the leadoff spot in Atlanta. That's crazy. That's great value. He should be a lot chalkier than he's going to be. Look at Falefa here. $4,000 in Texas, facing Robbie Ray at a 2,100 mark. You better be using this guy as a one-off. He's a great contrarian play going up against Robbie Ray tonight that a lot of people are going to be thinking of as a great pitcher. Say that 5 times fast. If Falefa gets the start, he might not get the start, but if he gets the start at $2,100, he's golly, that's a good number for him. Swihart was on the Boston number as well. You might check the BVP going against National League team. Probably no BVP for Falefa in Arizona here. I don't know why I'm so stuck on this, but what I'm seeing is that he's a catcher or a utility spot, and he's going against Robbie Ray. A lot of people aren't going to like that. And he's hitting a 500 WOBA on his last 20 at-bats, and he's only $2,100. Yet he's 4,200 on DraftKings, which signifies that he's not exactly a punt. Yet he is punt priced on Fanduel. That's a big deal. It's a really big deal. I would not be surprised if he has a good night and he's getting you a good night at say 5% or under ownership on Fanduel. That would be awesome for you if you take that chance. Now, what I want to tell you to do is to read Chin Music on a daily basis. I want to tell you to follow our NFL content as it gets released. And I want to tell you you need access to the tools and the Domination Station. You need the coaching, you need the tips that you get on a daily basis inside our Slack channel forums, which I never show you, but I should. As far as just in my channel alone, the conversations that we have back and forth is sometimes it gets pretty deep, sometimes not. But most of the time, it's me just guiding guys and kind of getting their heads on straight, teaching them the fundamentals and working with them on the fundamentals. If you need that kind of help, you need to become a VIP inside the DFS Army. And you do that by following the link in the comments section, dfsarmy.com. Use the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, trigger that 10% off discount. Start winning today. Thanks, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow.